In this lesson, we'll learn where to go to start customizing our theme. Now that we have our layout pretty much finalized, we have all of our content in, and we've also added some imagery, it's time to start customizing the theme and learning how we can make some changes to make it feel more like our own. One way we can do this is to come into the theme customizer. So I want to come up here and hover over our site title. And we can come down here to customize, and this is going to be one of the easier ways to start customizing our theme because we don't have to know code, and we can also take a look at our changes and see them live as they're taking place. We are kind of limited in the amount of changes we can make here, unfortunately, and it's also going to depend on your theme. Usually we have these kind of basic options that we can see here. On the left, we can start and come in to change our colors. We have header text color, which we aren't going to see any changes here because we removed all of those widgets. If we had more widgets here or some kind of content, then we would be able to change that text color. We can change our background color. So I want to come over here and I'm going to zoom out a little bit because right now I'm seeing my mobile layout. If you're using a small screen, when you bring up the customization editor like this, it might kind of trigger that smaller layout since we have a smaller screen to work with. I'm going to hit Control- a couple times so we can see our full website here. And if we change the background color, if I come here and drag this, you can see we are changing the background right here at the edge of our site. So we might not be able to see this in smaller layouts, but we will be able to see it in our desktop. Unfortunately, we can't change transparency here, so if we wanted to have any transparency in our color, we can't do that. We can only choose solid colors, and we have the ability to change the amount of saturation. So I'm going to leave this at kind of a darker color because I had more of a darker color scheme in mind for our site, which you can kind of tell my logo here is optimized for a dark background since it has kind of light text. I'm going to go ahead and collapse this colors area, and you might have noticed we can't change the body color of text or the text of body color or headings or anything like that here. We also can't edit the color of links, so that's kind of unfortunate here. We have to dive into the code if we want to make those changes. So I'm going to collapse that colors area. If we wanted to add a header image, you can see we have a recommended size here. And that's really nice to have because if we're creating a header image, if we wanted to add a background image up here in that header area, we know what size we need to use in a graphics editor like Photoshop or something like that, which I don't have a header image, so I'm going to go ahead and collapse this. For a background image, if we want a background image, there's a couple things we have to be careful about here. So I'm going to upload a background image here so we can take a look at this. I'm going to select a file, and I have this blue leopard background.jpg, and with our project files you can find it in the 18 begin folder and the 19 begin folder as well. And now we can see a preview of that background image, but I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so we can see this. We have our background image, and it's only taking up the full width and height of the image itself. We could fix this and have a really large image, but that's kind of tricky because we're really going to increase the file size to have that large image as a background, and we're going to increase our loading times as well. So people might have to wait to even see our nice big image to upload, so we want to be really careful like that. We can also tile the image, which to me looks kind of tacky, but if you have a seamless texture or something like that that we're using as a background, then tiling that is going to be a good choice. We can tile it just horizontally, or we could tile it vertically, but I'm going to keep this at that no repeat. We can center our background. We could center it to the right or position it to the right, and we have different background attachments. We could scroll, so when we scroll with our site, then our image, I'll just zoom in so we can see this, is going to stay in place, or if we set that to fixed, as we scroll our site, the image is going to sit in place, and then our background is just going to scroll on top of that. You can kind of see that it's not really moving there in our background. So I'm not going to add a background. I'm going to hit Control-0 to reset that zoom. And I'm going to remove that image, because if I want my image to cover that full screen, then I'm going to have to dive into the code. So we'll learn how to do that in our next lesson. We can change the navigation here. So if we want to add navigation to other places, I'll zoom out again real fast. So we have our regular menu displaying. If I wanted a secondary menu, I'm just going to add the main navigation menu so we can see what this would look like. We have one up here, so if we have a login or something like that, that might be a good choice for that location. And we can also add a footer menu as well, which is going to appear right down here, which I'm going to set that back at the default. And then the last couple options we can customize here. We can change the widgets, and then we use a static front page option to change it from our latest posts to a static page. So that's what that does once again. So I'm going to go ahead and press save and publish, and we can take a look at one last way we can customize our site using the interface, and that's going to depend on whether your theme supports it and whether you have the ability to edit theme options. If we come in here, we see we have a couple different basic things we can change. We can change the color scheme to one of 4 different schemes. If you have a theme that supports more color schemes, we might have more, we might have less. It really just depends, once again, on the flexibility that comes with our theme. So I'm going to scroll down here. We can change that header background, which we can do in that customize screen as well. The body background, same thing as in that customize screen. We have our logo here, and we can also change the default template it's using as well. So since we are using kind of a full screen layout, I have that full screen selected, but if you want your posts and archive pages to have a sidebar or something like that, you can change that default page template. We can have a wider sidebar. We could add more widget areas in our footer, and we could also customize that copyright text. So I've just added the name of our business, copyright the Blue Leopard, all rights reserved. So it's a little bit more custom. You can see right here is that default. It just says all rights reserved. But if I refresh this, you can see we now have our business name here as well. If you want to get rid of this design by open codes, we actually have to go in and edit the template files, which we will learn how to do in our next lesson. So in our theme options, the last couple things we can do is we can add a contact phone number and an email in our header. But on our site, we have it here in our footer, so I'm not going to add that because it would be redundant. If we did add it, it would be right up here above our logo, and that once again is going to depend on our theme. So I'm going to go ahead and save these options. And in our next lesson, we're going to learn how to make more advanced types of customization. If we're not happy with only being able to change the background and really basic changes like that, then we have to dive into the code. So if you know CSS and you want to learn how to make those advanced customizations, stick around and we'll learn how to do that in our next lesson.